For decades, Abby and Brittany Hensel lived a life that balanced between public curiosity and private hope, a balance they worked hard to maintain even when the world around them didn't always make it easy. From the moment they were born as conjoined twins in 1990, their lives carried a sense of wonder for many people who saw them, but for the twins themselves, it was simply normal life, filled with siblings, school, childhood adventures, and the same dreams any young girls might have. Yet because they were born in such a rare way, with two heads sharing a single body, they were placed under a spotlight they never asked for. Reporters wanted interviews, doctors wanted research opportunities, strangers wanted photos, and the media wanted stories. But what Abby and Brittany wanted most was something simple: privacy, peace, and the chance to grow into adulthood without being watched at every turn. Over the years, they learned how to control what the world saw and how to keep their most personal moments hidden from the public eye. They were careful about interviews, selective about media appearances, and protective of their daily life, especially as they grew older and understood how cruel and invasive the world could be. For a long time, they succeeded. The public's attention slowly faded, and the cameras stopped chasing them. They became teachers, built friendships, and started living a quiet, ordinary life in Minnesota, a life they had always dreamed of, far away from the spotlight that followed them throughout their youth. But in 2024, everything changed when discovery the twins never wanted the world to know suddenly surfaced in headlines and social media feeds everywhere. It wasn't a medical emergency, a tragedy, or a shocking event. It was something far more personal. Abby's private marriage to Josh Bowling, a U.S. Army veteran and nurse, a marriage that had taken place quietly on November 13th, 2021, without cameras, without interviews, and without the world watching. The marriage had been a moment of joy for Abby, a moment shared with family and close friends, and a moment meant to remain private for as long as possible. But when public records revealed the wedding nearly 3 years later, the quiet life the twins had worked so hard to protect shattered overnight. Social media erupted with curiosity, confusion, criticism, and even anger. Strangers debated their right to marry, their right to privacy, their ability to make intimate choices, and even the morality of their personal life. Headlines appeared around the world, and the twins found themselves dragged back into the harsh light of public judgment. The situation grew worse when a fake TikTok account pretending to represent Abby and Brittany spread false rumors, edited videos, and even suggested a pregnancy that never existed. For the twins, the sudden loss of privacy, the emotional strain, and the painful return to public scrutiny felt heavier than anything they had experienced before. And once again, the world seemed to forget the truth. Abby and Brittany Hensel were not a spectacle. They were two human beings trying to live their lives with dignity, love, and peace. But now, they were being forced to face the consequences of a world that often refuses to let extraordinary people live ordinary lives. They're stories in the world that people remember for years, not because they're filled with action or loud moments, but because they touch the heart in a way nothing else can. The story of the famous conjoined twins, who spent their entire lives side by side, is one of those stories that people have followed with curiosity, love, and deep respect. For a long time, they lived as an example of courage and togetherness, showing the world that even the most unusual life can be beautiful when there is strength and hope inside it. From the day they were born, doctors were unsure how long they would survive or what kind of life they would have. But the twins grew, laughed, learned, and lived in a way that surprised everyone. They were not just connected by their bodies. They were connected by a bond that most people can never experience, a bond formed by facing every moment of life as one. And for many years, the world believed that they would always remain this way, sharing one body, one journey, one heartbeat. But then came the shocking news that left everyone speechless. The twins announced that they had been separated. Don't understand why this moment sent waves across the world. You must first understand how deeply the twin story had become a part of people's lives. Over the years, millions watched them grow up, go to school, learn skills, and experience the world in a way that felt both inspiring and extraordinary. Every interview they gave, every small achievement they celebrated, and every challenge they faced was seen by people as a reminder that life should never be measured only by physical limits. Their personalities were different, their dreams were different, and their way of thinking about the world was different, but they always found a way to walk forward together. One twin was calm and thoughtful, while the other was more outgoing and loved adventure. One liked reading quietly, while the other loved meeting new people. They were two souls in one body, learning how to balance their hopes and choices in a world that constantly watched them. And as time passed, more and more people grew attached to them, feeling as if they were part of their journey to the SO when the news arrived that they had gone through a separation surgery, a surgery that many doctors once thought was impossible. It felt like a moment where the entire world paused. People wanted to know everything: how it happened, why it happened, when it happened, and most importantly, how the twins were doing after such a life-changing step. The surprise was not just in the surgery itself, but in the fact that the twins had kept it a secret until they were ready to share it. They wanted time. They wanted privacy. They wanted to make sure they were strong enough, emotionally and physically, before letting the world into this new chapter of their lives. And when they finally spoke publicly, their words were both emotional and powerful. They said that the surgery was not about leaving each other behind, but about discovering who they could become as individuals. After a lifetime of moving through the world as one, they were finally learning what it meant to move separately. For many years, people looked at the twins and saw something almost magical, something rare that only a few ever witnessed in real life. They were born connected not just by the body, but by the circumstances that surrounded their birth, a moment filled with fear, confusion, and uncertainty. Their parents had been told that the chances of survival were low, and even if the twins lived, their lives would be filled with countless challenges and limitations. But with every passing year, the twins proved that predictions do not define people. Courage does. They learned to sit, walk, run, and even dance together, surprising doctors and specialists who once doubted their abilities. Their early years were filled with therapy sessions, hospital visits, and medical examinations, yet they always found a reason to smile. They grew up hearing questions from strangers everywhere they went, but instead of letting the world's stares break them, they turned those moments into opportunities to teach people about kindness, understanding, and acceptance. Their strength wasn't just physical. It was emotional, something that came from having to work as a team since the moment they entered the world. As they moved into their teenage years, the twins became even more well-known. Television shows wanted to interview them. Magazines wanted to write about them, and people online talk about them with admiration. What made their story special was not only the fact that they were conjoined, but the fact that they lived their lives with such natural harmony. Many wondered how they managed arguments, decisions, and personal feelings when they had no choice but to face everything side by side. And the twins always answered with honesty. They had disagreements just like anyone else, but they learned early that communication was the most important thing. If one was tired, the other learned patience. If one was excited, the other learned how to share that excitement even if they felt differently. They created their own world, one where mutual respect mattered more than anything. They understood that their connection was not something to hide or feel ashamed of. Instead, it was something rare and beautiful, something that taught them how to be strong in ways most people never experienced in their entire lives. But even with all this love and unity, as they grew older, something quietly began to change inside them. It wasn't anger, and it wasn't unhappiness. It was simply the natural desire that almost every human feels at some point, the desire to understand who they are as individuals. When you grow up sharing every step with another person, you rarely get the chance to explore your own identity. The twins had dreams that were similar in some ways, but very different in others. One wanted to travel and see places far from home, while the other dreamed of writing books and spending time in peaceful environments. And while they supported each other's dreams with all their hearts, they knew some dreams could only be explored individually. For a long time, this thought stayed quietly in the background of their lives, unspoken but always present. They wondered what it would feel like to wake up and move their bodies freely, without worrying if the other was comfortable. They wondered what it would be like to make choices without needing to negotiate every small detail. They wondered who they each truly were, separate from the world's expectations and separate from each other. These thoughts eventually led them to conversations that were emotional, long, and incredibly difficult. They loved each other deeply, but they also knew that real love sometimes means letting each other grow. So they began meeting with doctors again, not because they were unhappy with their lives, but because they wanted to understand if separation was even possible. And with medical advancements that did not exist when they were younger, doctors gave them a different answer than before. For the first time in their lives, separation was not just a dream, it was a real possibility. And that possibility opened a door to a future that neither of them had ever imagined. When the idea of separation first became real, the twins found themselves standing at the edge of a choice that would forever change their lives. It was not a decision they could make overnight, and it was not one they took lightly. For most people, independence is something that comes naturally with time. But for the twins, independence was something nearly unimaginable, something that felt both exciting and terrifying at the same time. They had lived every moment of their lives connected, learning how to move together, adapt together, and grow together. Their bodies shared space, but their hearts shared something even deeper: comfort. The comfort of never being alone. The comfort of always having someone beside them who understood their feelings without even needing words. So the thought of living separately felt like walking into a new world without a map. But at the same time, the possibility of discovering their individual selves filled them with a kind of hope they had never known before. And the months that followed, they spoke to doctors from around the world, meeting specialists who studied every detail of their condition. Some doctors were amazed by how perfectly the twins had adapted to life together. Others focused on the technical challenges of separation: blood vessels that needed to be divided, organs that needed to be carefully reconstructed, and the long recovery process that would follow. The medical team explained the risks again and again, making sure the twins understood that separation was not guaranteed to succeed. There were dangers. There were uncertainties. There were moments where even the strongest medical experts hesitated. But the twins listened with maturity far beyond their years. They wanted to make an informed choice, not one based on fear or excitement alone. They knew the world would have opinions. They knew people would question their decision, wonder why they would choose such a difficult path after living harmoniously for so long. But the twins also knew that this journey was about them, not the world watching them. It was their bodies, their lives, and their future. During this time, they also turned inward, asking themselves questions they had never asked before. What did they want their futures to look like? What kind of lives did they dream of living? What kind of people did they want to become? For the first time, they began imagining a world where they could walk freely in different directions, choose different hobbies, follow different routines, and explore different dreams. One of them imagined waking up early to take long walks alone, listening to the sounds of nature without any distractions. The other imagined joining clubs and spending time with friends in a way that felt impossible before. Both dreams were valid, both were beautiful, and both were only possible if they chose separation. These quiet desires became the emotional foundation for their decision. They realized that wanting individuality did not mean wanting distance from each other. It simply meant wanting the opportunity to grow in their own ways while still being connected by love, not by physical dependency. What made their decision even harder was a fear of the unknown. They had never been apart for even a single moment in their lives. The idea of waking up in separate hospital beds after the surgery made their hearts ache. The idea of not having the other right beside them felt strange, heavy, and unfamiliar. They wondered if they would feel lonely. They wondered if they would miss the rhythm of moving together. They wondered if the world would treat them differently once they were no longer seen as the famous conjoined twins, but as two separate individuals. These thoughts kept them awake at night, sometimes talking for hours, sometimes sitting in silence, simply feeling the weight of the future. But despite the fear, there was one thing they were sure of. They would never abandon each other emotionally. Physical separation could never erase the bond built over a lifetime of shared experiences. And so, after months of discussions, medical evaluations, emotional conversations, and countless moments of reflection, they made the bravest decision of their lives. They chose to go through with the surgery. They chose to take the risk. They chose to step into a future that was uncertain but full of possibilities. They chose to discover who they could become, together, but also individually. The days leading up to the surgery felt heavier than anything the twins had ever experienced. Even though they had made their decision with clear minds and brave hearts, the reality of what was about to happen settled in slowly, like a cloud drifting across the sky and blocking the sun. Their family tried to stay strong for them, offering words of comfort, cooking their favorite meals, and filling the house with warmth and laughter to ease the tension. But everyone knew that a major life-changing moment was approaching. The twins spent a lot of time together, more than usual, not because they feared losing each other emotionally, but because they wanted to cherish the closeness they had lived with since birth. Every simple activity, watching movies, brushing their hair, reading books, or even sitting quietly, felt different. These were moments they had done thousands of times, but each one now carried the weight of the last time we do this as conjoined twins. Meanwhile, the medical team worked tirelessly to prepare for the surgery. Dozens of specialists came together: surgeons, nurses, anesthesiologists, therapists, and counselors. Each one studied the twins' medical history, scanned every part of their shared anatomy, and rehearsed the procedure repeatedly. The surgery would be long, delicate, and extremely complex. The twins shared structures that would need to be carefully separated, while ensuring both bodies could function independently afterward. This type of operation required incredible precision, teamwork, and steady nerves. But the doctors believed they could do it. Modern medicine had advanced far beyond what was available when the twins were born, opening doors that were once closed. Still, the medical team was honest with the family. There were risks they couldn't control. The twins listened to these warnings bravely. They did not break down. They did not panic. And they did not change their minds. Instead, they said that fear was natural, but so was hope, and they chose to hold on to hope. The night before the surgery was especially emotional. The house was quiet, not because anyone wanted silence, but because every word carried too much weight. The twins lay awake talking softly about everything they'd experienced together: the milestones, the funny moments, the challenges, the love they had received from people around the world. They reminded each other that no matter what happened after the operation, they would always be sisters, always be connected, always understand each other more deeply than anyone else could. Their parents tried to sleep, but couldn't. They walked around the house in worry, praying for strength, safety, and success. It was a night none of them would ever forget. When morning arrived, the hospital felt both peaceful and overwhelming. Bright lights, soft beeping sounds, and calm voices filled the hallways. The twins were taken to pre-surgery room, where doctors and nurses prepared them with gentle words and warm smiles. Their hands were held. Their parents kissed their foreheads. The twins looked at each other, their eyes steady, their hearts strong. They did not need long speeches or dramatic words. They simply whispered, "We can do this." Those 4 words held all the strength and trust they had built over the years as they were wheeled toward the operating room. Time seemed to slow. Every sound became clear. Every breath felt important. The large doors opened, revealing a room filled with bright surgical lights and a team ready to begin. The twins took one last deep breath together, knowing that when they woke up, everything would be different. They closed their eyes as anesthesia began its gentle pull. And in that moment, the world outside waited with bated breath. People around the globe who knew their story hoped and prayed for a miracle. And inside that operating room, surrounded by skilled hands and hopeful hearts, the journey toward separation began. The surgery began in the early hours of the morning, long before the sun had risen. It was a moment that many people had waited for, but none more than the twins themselves. Inside the operating room, the team of surgeons moved with calm precision, each step planned, each action rehearsed dozens of times. They knew the world saw this surgery as a miracle, but for them, it was also a responsibility unlike any other. Every heartbeat, every breath, every small detail mattered. The twins were in the hands of experts who understood both the medical challenge and the emotional weight of what they were doing. As the anesthesia settled in and the twins drifted into deep sleep, the doctors began the long, careful work of giving them something they had never known before: individual lives. The surgery lasted many hours, stretching from morning to evening. Outside, their family waited anxiously, counting every passing minute. The hospital staff tried their best to keep them updated. But there were stretches of time where no news could be given, simply because the surgeons were too focused on the delicate task at hand. They had to separate tissues, nerves, and structures that had grown together naturally since birth. In some areas, the separation was straightforward. In others, it was incredibly challenging, even for the most experienced professionals. The surgeons communicated constantly with one another, their voices steady, their movements careful. Even the smallest mistake could have serious consequences. But despite the difficulty, the room was filled with determination and hope. Every doctor knew they were not simply performing a medical procedure. They were giving two people a chance for a different future as the hours passed. The family prayed, clung to each other, and whispered words of encouragement. They remembered the twins' childhood, their laughter, their struggles, everything they had overcome together. The thought of them going through such a dangerous surgery was painful, yet the thought of them achieving their dream of independence brought a strange kind of peace. News channels and social media accounts outside the hospital waited too, sharing updates with millions of people around the world. The story of the twins had reached across countries and languages, touching hearts everywhere. People who had never met them felt connected to them, rooting for their success as if they were family. Inside the operating room, after many long hours, the moment finally came, the moment the surgeons had been working toward with all their skill and strength. Slowly, carefully, they completed the final steps. And then, for the first time in their lives, the twins were no longer physically connected. It was a quiet moment, not dramatic or noisy. No one cheered loudly. Instead, the room was filled with a deep silence, the kind that carried the weight of something extraordinary. The surgeons looked at each other with relief and pride, knowing they had achieved something incredible. But the surgery was not over yet. They still had hours of work left to rebuild and stabilize each twin's body, ensuring that all vital functions were protected. The medical team continued their careful efforts, knowing that their job was far from done. When the surgery finally ended, the twins were taken to the recovery area, each in their own bed for the first time ever. The doctors approached the family with tired expressions but hopeful smiles. They explained that the operation had been successful, though recovery would take time. Long weeks of healing, physical therapy, emotional adjustment, and constant care. When the family heard the word successful, tears filled their eyes. After years of wondering, worrying, and dreaming, the impossible had become reality. The twins had made it. They had survived one of the most complicated surgeries imaginable. They had stepped into a new chapter of life. Still sisters, still connected by love, but now separate individuals at last. When the twins slowly began to wake up after the surgery, the world around them felt different in a way that words could not fully describe. The lights seemed softer, the room seemed bigger, and the air felt heavier, almost as if it carried the weight of their new reality. For the first time ever, they were lying in separate beds with space, real, physical space, between them. The nurses had prepared the room with care, placing them close enough to see each other, but far enough to allow their bodies to heal without strain. At first, their eyes opened only for a few seconds at a time, drifting in and out of sleep as the effect of anesthesia slowly faded. But in those brief moments, they looked at each other with quiet amazement. They could not speak much because their bodies were still weak, but the small smiles on their faces said everything. They had done it. They had survived. The first few days of recovery were the hardest. Their bodies were in pain, wrapped in bandages, connected to tubes and monitors that beeped softly in the background. Nurses checked their vitals constantly, ensuring there were no complications. Doctors came in and out of the room, speaking in calm voices and explaining each step of the healing process. The twins could not move freely yet. Even turning slightly required assistance. But despite the discomfort, the feeling inside their hearts was something new, something powerful. They were finally experiencing life as individuals. It did not feel real at first. It felt like a dream they might wake up from at any moment. But each passing hour made the reality clearer. They were separated, truly separated, and the world they had always wondered about was now theirs to explore. Emotionally, the transition was complicated. There were moments where they felt brave and proud, and moments where fear tried to pull them down. One of the strangest experiences for them was the silence. When they were conjoined, they could always feel the presence of the other. Every movement, every breath, every shift of weight. Now, for the first time in their lives, they had quiet around them. The absence of that constant shared physical connection created a feeling they had never experienced before, somewhere between loneliness and curiosity. It was not a sad loneliness, but a new kind of awareness. They were learning what it meant to exist separately, to occupy their own space, to feel the world without sharing every second of it. Sometimes they reached out instinctively, expecting the familiar contact, only to be reminded that things had changed. Their family played a huge part in helping them adjust to this new chapter. Their parents stayed by their sides, offering comfort through gentle words, warm smiles, and supportive touches. They reassured the twins that it was okay to feel overwhelmed. It was okay to feel scared. Major changes always come with mixed emotions. The twins leaned on each other emotionally even when their bodies could no longer be close. They talked softly from their beds, asking each other how the other felt, encouraging each other through every small milestone, sitting up, drinking water, taking the first assisted steps. These moments were victories, proof that they were getting stronger. The medical team celebrated each improvement with the same excitement as a family, because everyone understood how much effort and bravery each step required. As the days turned into weeks, the twins began physical therapy. This was a new challenge, one they had never faced before. Their muscles had to adjust to functioning independently. Therapists taught them how to balance on their own, how to walk with proper posture, and how to build strength without relying on shared support. The sessions were exhausting, sometimes painful, but the twins pushed through with determination. They reminded themselves that this was the future they had chosen. They were learning how to stand on their own, literally and emotionally, and with each session, they felt a growing sense of pride. Every small achievement became a symbol of how far they had come. Even in the midst of struggle, one thing became clear: the bond between them had not weakened. In fact, it had become stronger in a new way. They were no longer connected by their bodies, but by their shared journey, their memories, their love, and their dreams. And now, they were learning something beautiful. They could grow individually without losing the deep connection that made them who they were. As the weeks passed, the twins' confidence grew. Every small movement, every step they took independently, became a triumph. The first time they walked across the room without holding on to each other, it felt like the entire world was cheering silently. It was not only a physical achievement, but an emotional one. After spending more than 3 decades moving as one, discovering the ability to act and respond without needing the other's body was both exhilarating and overwhelming. They learned to do everyday tasks on their own, brushing their teeth, getting dressed, preparing simple meals, all of which they had previously done together. Even these small accomplishments were monumental. Their therapists, doctors, and family praised every effort, reminding the twins that patience and persistence were key. Each day brought progress, and each progress strengthened their sense of independence. The twins began to understand that separation did not mean losing one another. It meant gaining the freedom to experience life as distinct individuals while keeping their emotional bond intact. Emotionally, the adjustment was just as important as the physical one. For decades, their thoughts and feelings had been intertwined. Decisions, small and big, had always been a matter of compromise, negotiation, and shared understanding. Now, each twin could make choices independently, allowing their personalities to shine even more. They discovered new preferences, new rhythms, and new ways of enjoying life. One twin found herself drawn to activities she had never tried before because she could act without worrying about whether it would affect the other. The other explored hobbies that reflected her unique identity, gaining confidence in her personal decisions. These experiences were liberating, providing the twins with a sense of autonomy they had longed for but never fully imagined. Yet, despite this newfound freedom, they remained deeply connected through love, communication, and shared experiences. Separation did not create distance between them. It created room to grow individually while still caring for one another. Outside the hospital, the news of their separation spread worldwide. Social media erupted with headlines, videos, and reactions from people who had followed their lives for years. Many were thrilled at the medical achievement and celebrated the twins' bravery. Others were curious, asking questions about how they would manage life independently, how their health would progress, and how their relationship might change. Even though the twins had requested privacy, the public's fascination was unavoidable. Unlike before, however, they now had a degree of control over their own narrative. Their doctors and family carefully filtered what information was shared, balancing the twins' desire for independence with the inevitable interest from the world. It was a delicate dance between transparency and privacy, one that required patience, understanding, and firm boundaries. The twins learned that being extraordinary often came with responsibility, not just to themselves, but also to the people who had supported them and cared about their journey. During this period, the twins also reflected on the life they had shared for over 30 years. They spoke about childhood memories, teenage adventures, and the milestones they had achieved together. Each story reminded them that their bond was not defined solely by their physical connection. They realized that trust, empathy, and understanding had always been the foundation of their relationship, and those qualities could not be altered by surgery. Even now, they found comfort in knowing that while their bodies are separated, their hearts remained aligned. The twin who had always been quieter discovered joy in expressing herself more openly, while more outgoing twin appreciated the moment of introspection that separation allowed. They began to explore new friendships, experiences, and opportunities with enthusiasm, discovering that independence could be fulfilling without diminishing their deep connection. The recovery period also allowed them to reflect on their future. They envisioned lives filled with possibilities they had never experienced as conjoined twins. Careers, hobbies, travel, and personal achievements, all were suddenly within reach. Yet, they remained grounded, understanding that growth would be gradual, requiring patience, support, and careful planning. Each milestone they achieved independently was celebrated together, reinforcing that success and happiness did not have to come at the expense of their bond. The twins had always been extraordinary, not just because of their shared life, but because of the resilience, courage, and determination they demonstrated every day. Now, with separation complete, they were ready to redefine what it meant to live fully as individuals, while continuing to honor the unbreakable connection they had shared since birth. As the twins continued their recovery, they began to explore the world in ways that were previously impossible. Small daily activities, like walking to the park, visiting local shops, or simply sitting in a quiet cafe, now held a new meaning. Each step taken independently brought a mixture of exhilaration and reflection. For the first time, they experienced the subtle details of life through their own individual perspectives. The feeling of autonomy, once unimaginable, now became an essential part of their identity. It wasn't just about moving freely. It was about understanding themselves in relation to the world outside their shared body. The twins had spent decades being observed, analyzed, and sometimes misunderstood, but now they could interact with the world on their own terms. Every smile from a stranger, every casual greeting, every ordinary moment was a small victory in reclaiming their individuality. At the same time, the emotional challenges persisted. The twins had relied on each other for constant support, reassurance, and comfort. Suddenly, each had to navigate moments of uncertainty alone. There were times when loneliness crept in, a subtle reminder of the inseparable life they had known for 31 years. Yet, these moments also provided a space for personal growth. They learned to rely on their inner strength, to trust their judgment, and to develop confidence in their own abilities. They discovered that independence did not mean isolation. Their emotional bond remained, now strengthened by the conscious effort to care for each other in new ways. Phone calls, video chats, and shared daily reflections became tools for maintaining closeness without physical dependence. They learned that love and connection could transcend the body, and that the depth of their relationship had always been emotional and mental, as much as it was physical. One of the most remarkable aspects of this new chapter was the way the twins approached their personal goals. Abby, who had always dreamed of traveling to faraway places, began planning trips that allowed her to explore new cultures and experiences on her own terms. She found a joy and independence she had never fully realized, savoring the freedom to make choices without needing to negotiate every detail. Brittany, on the other hand, pursued creative projects and educational goals that reflected her personal interests. Writing, volunteering, and engaging in community programs became her focus. These pursuits not only provided fulfillment, but also allowed her to express herself in ways that were uniquely her own. Both twins supported each other's endeavors, celebrating achievements and offering encouragement, understanding that individual growth did not diminish their shared history or love. Their separation also sparked a broader conversation about identity, individuality, and public perception. Social media, documentaries, and news outlets continued to follow their story, but the twins now had a voice in shaping the narrative. They spoke openly about the challenges and triumphs of separation, addressing misconceptions, while asserting their right to privacy and dignity. Their journey became more than a medical marvel. It became a lesson in resilience, courage, and the human desire for self-discovery. People who had once seen them solely as a conjoined twins began to appreciate the complexity of their lives, recognizing them as two distinct individuals with unique personalities, dreams, and emotions. Through it all, their bond remained unshakable. Separation had not weakened their connection. It had refined it, allowing them to appreciate the depth of their relationship in new ways. They had shared 31 years of life, and now, for the first time, they could experience life separately while still maintaining a profound sense of togetherness. Each milestone, each challenge, and each triumph reinforced a lesson that true connection does not require constant physical presence. It requires love, understanding, and mutual respect. For Abby and Brittany, the extraordinary nature of their lives was not defined by their bodies, but by the courage. As Abby and Brittany settled into their new lives, one of the most profound changes was in how they related to the world around them. For decades, every action they took had been scrutinized by the public. Cameras, reporters, and strangers had turned their private lives into a spectacle. Now, for the first time, they could step outside their home without immediately becoming the subject of conversation. Even a simple walk in the neighborhood felt liberating. They could make choices about their day without considering how it would appear to millions of viewers. The independence that came with separation was not just about physical mobility. It was about reclaiming control over their lives, something they had long been denied. This newfound autonomy allowed them to enjoy life in small, meaningful ways that many people take for granted. Walking separately, trying new foods, or spending quiet time alone. These moments were simple, yet profoundly transformative. Emotionally, the twins discovered layers of themselves that had been hidden during their years as conjoined twins. Abby found herself drawn to personal hobbies that she had never explored, from painting to solo jogging. Brittany, meanwhile, explored her own style, her own voice, and her own passions without feeling the need to compromise or mirror her sister's choices. Both embraced their individuality while remaining fully connected emotionally. They often reflected together on the idea that independence had strengthened, rather than weakened, their bond. Where once they had been tied together physically, now they were tied by shared memories, deep trust, and a love that required no physical proximity to thrive. They learned that being separate did not equate to being apart. It meant they could grow individually while continuing to support each other wholeheartedly. Their family played a critical role in helping them navigate this transition. Parents, relatives, and close friends provided encouragement, patience, and reassurance. They celebrated milestones like the twins taking their first independent steps outside the hospital, managing tasks alone, or traveling for the first time individually. Every small achievement was a testament to the strength, determination, and resilience that had always defined the twins. At the same time, the family maintained boundaries with the media and the public. The twins' story was extraordinary, yes, but it was also personal. Their lives did not belong to strangers, and their experiences could not be reduced to headlines or viral content. The balance between sharing their journey and protecting their privacy became a central theme in their post-surgery lives. The public's fascination with the twins did not disappear overnight. Social media, documentaries, and news outlets continued to follow their story, but the narrative began to shift. Instead of focusing solely on the medical marvel of their lives, coverage started highlighting their personal growth, achievements, and resilience. Stories emphasized the twins as individuals with distinct identities rather than a singular entity. This subtle shift in perception was both gratifying and empowering for the twins. It reinforced that the world could admire and be inspired by them without claiming ownership over their lives or reducing them to their anatomy. Slowly, people began to understand that their extraordinary journey was defined not by their bodies, but by their courage, determination, and capacity for love in classrooms. Their work as teachers gained renewed appreciation. They were no longer just known as the conjoined twins, but as skilled educators dedicated to shaping young minds. Abby specialized in math and science, while Brittany focused on reading and language arts. Their students interacted with them as mentors, guides, and role models. Two individuals who were caring, patient, and passionate about teaching. The classroom became a sanctuary where the twins could express themselves fully, free from public scrutiny. Outside the classroom, they engaged in personal hobbies, community activities, and quiet moments that reminded them of the beauty of everyday life. These experiences, while ordinary to some, were monumental in the context of